God's people, and I thank you, Father. I also thank you for my covering, my husband in his absence. He has more than covered me. I called and he prayed over me. And I'm going to do what he prayed on tonight. I just loved how he put the words together over me. He said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And so he said, I guess tonight you're going to do some God talk. And I love that, because really I had never really considered the scripture like that before, that the Word itself is God. And so today we don't talk God. That's what we do. That's literally who is moving and breathing on the inside of us. And so, Father, I just decrease that you would increase, that your spirit would come out the more, that it would be you that would breathe upon the truth of these words. And I pray, Father, that even as you breathe, that you would do just what your word promises, that you would resurrect some things in the earth. I thank you, Father, that we are but your handmaiden and your instrument, and so we yield ourselves over as an instrument of righteousness in your hand. Now, Father, I ask you to do those things that will glorify you, that would magnify you in the earth, and that would make you so big on the inside of each and every one of us. I say permeate these words even now, so that even in the days to come, as people begin to find the video or hear of your teachings that are being released from out of this house, that they would be quickened and the awakening of the truth would be ignited on the inside of them. Not for any person to glory, O Yah, but that you would receive all of the glory that is in your name. So I thank you in advance. So I'm one that when I teach, I like to go back and recap the things that we talked about last week. So that way we know where everybody is. So last week the Most High was starting a thought of exhuming the body. And this is part 2 of that thought. But I want to go over a few definitions, because it helps us to get certain things under our belt. That word exhume, as I'm going to use it, means to bring back into awareness. We have only considered it from the standpoint of picking a body up out of the grave, but that word also means to bring back into awareness something that has become obscure, something that has been neglected, something that needs to be revived or restored because it's been a long period of neglect or a period of forgetting. And I can say honestly that resurrection power, because we don't teach about it, we don't preach about it. My word tells me that faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of the Most High. And so if we don't talk about resurrection power, how can we have faith to believe for it? Hallelujah. Now the next word I want to expound on is that word body. And I know that we think about the body as just something that's physical, but it is the main part. When you think about the body of a paragraph, you have a main idea, and then you add to that main idea your supporting thoughts, your supporting criteria, as it were, in order to prove your main idea. And so the body is about reviving that main part, that central part of the gospel. Our gospel, as I said last week, it hinges on this power that the Most High exerts that causes you and I to get up out of the grave and begin to walk. And I'm not talking about the sweet by and by. I'm talking about right now we are walking in this type of authority, power. Resurrection never left the earth. As I said last week, our faith just diminished. And so I am coming in order to plead and make a legal case that resurrection power is here. I said that we would investigate so that we can spiritually discern conditions. Now, the Most High, He was talking to me this week, and so I'm going to add 4 more words. Because this is what He said. He said we can't live our life and our worship of Him as an event. This has to be a lifestyle. It has to be a lifestyle, because this is the thing. An event will occur, and if you do not have prayer and the word as a part of your lifestyle, you will not have the power or sufficient faith in order to meet the event. So now let me define event. It's a noteworthy happening. It's something that happens. And I like this last part. It's an adverse or damaging medical occurrence. That's an event. And right now, that's why I believe the Most High is bringing this into the earth realm again, is that we are up against things that they are doing biologically, and it's creating medical events. Now, a lifestyle is defined as this. It's your typical way of life. It's my personal conduct or behavior. It's my manner and my mode of living. It's a habit. It's a way of speaking to and treating others. So I'm beginning to pray differently. Like, Father, I don't want fasting to be an event. I want fasting to be my lifestyle. I need prayer and fasting to just be what I do on a regular basis, because I have to constantly be hearing the Most High. And this is going to take us into a new dimension as we move from this event into just walking out a lifestyle. It's supposed to be a lifestyle. A lifestyle is a relationship. For instance, when you get married, the event is the wedding. The lifestyle is the day-to-day that we do together. So we have to start walking in the day-to-day as a bride of the Most High. We are a bride of Christ. And we have to start walking. I like how you said, Apostle, there's some things that's going counterclockwise. We are walking out our lifestyle of being the bride before He makes us fully the bride. Second definition, or third I should say, is the difference between suddenly and immediately. Now, suddenlies are beginning to happen more and more. So let me define suddenly. Suddenly is this: happening unexpectedly, manifesting abruptly out of nowhere. An event occurred. It's brought about in a short amount of time. It's an unexpected occurrence. And suddenlies can actually go either way. It can go good or bad depending on how you're talking about it. But immediately are different. Immediately means it's no interval of time. It means straightway. It means without delay. It's now. It's right now. Like, it's immediately. I opened up my eyes, immediately I saw. It's right now. It's a right now move of the Most High. And He told me that this is what's going to happen. As we begin to bring from out of obscurity and discuss and talk about and preach with fervency, with power, with prayerfulness, the resurrection power that is made available. The same thing that happened when a revelation came to Oral Roberts about healing. We started seeing mass healings in the earth again. When a revelation was given about seed time and harvest, and we start seeing millionaires and billionaires coming into the kingdom. The same way that we received a word on prayer, and there are all these different manifestations and formations of prayer. We're going to start seeing it, just like with the prayer movement, we start seeing houses of prayer popping up all over the place. We're going to see resurrection power again in our time, in our now, immediately. Yes. That's why we have to make the case. Hallelujah. So now let me talk about lifestyle. I'm going to go to Luke 4:16. Because I like Yeshua. He had a lifestyle. Luke 4:16 says this. He says, Yeshua came to Nazareth where he had been brought up, as his custom was. See, that's the lifestyle part. He went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read. Luke 5:16 says this, that Yeshua frequently withdrew himself to the wilderness to pray. He went to lonely places and prayed. In those days, according to Luke 6:12, Yeshua went out to the mountain to pray. He spent the night. He continued all night in prayer to the Most High. Mark 1:35 says that in the morning, rising up a great while before day, Yeshua went out. He departed into a solitary place and he prayed. What's coming to the body now, this lifestyle has to be a lifestyle of prayer in order to begin having having this resurrection power moving into the earth. The thing is, when you go, okay, when you come and you go to raise up a body, this should not be the first time that the Most High has heard your voice. Because he don't even know you. I'm just going to tell the whole truth. It'll be just like them 7 sons of Sceva. Yeshua, I know. Paul, I didn't heard of, but who are you? Our lifestyle has to shift in this hour. It can no longer be the event of I'm going to church on Sunday and Wednesday. My lifestyle is, Father, I'm constantly in your tabernacle. I'm constantly before your face. Immediately. Let me talk about that. I'm going to pull a couple of scriptures from out of the book of Sirach. And for those that are listening, you have to authenticate books. So when you first open up the book of Sirach, it's in the Apocrypha, it'll say things like Sirach, the son of Jesus. That's what it says. And then people will get offended immediately about that. And we need to get some things clarified and cleared up so that we know what that word means. When it says the son of Jesus, Yeshua, Yeshua is a variation form. It can also mean Yahshua, Joshua. It is not only Yeshua as we know Yeshua. So Sirach is not a child, some incestuous child between Yeshua the Messiah and some woman. That is not what happened. So let's get that cleared up so that you don't bring a level of offense into the word. So we want to be clear. Now out of Sirach in 48 it says this. Chapter 48 verses 19 and 20. And he was speaking about Hezekiah. He said, there was trembling in their hearts and hands, in pain as women in travail. But they called upon Yahuwah Elohim, who is merciful, with them stretched out their hands toward him. And this is what the word says, immediately. That means there was no delay. Immediately, the Holy One heard them out of heaven and delivered them by the ministry of the prophet Isaiah. We want to be clear. There's some immediatelys that are coming. There's not going to be any intervals. All right. So we got our definitions and a few scriptures under our belt here. Now I said I came to make a case for resurrection power. And this is part 2. Now your handout, y'all have, first of all, on the front side of your handout, you're going to have all of the resurrections as they are noted in Scripture. That way, you can actually go and take time yourself and do additional study, because the Most High, because His Spirit and His Word is so bountiful, He may reveal even more depths to you. And then you can also impart. Because that's what happens when we get a word. Immediately we need to start practicing and working that word. That's how it becomes life and it becomes a part of us. Okay? All right. So then you have 3 tables and it has boxes. I'm going to go across and I'm trying to look these in a category that we can work with. Because I told you we always have to give the Most High a legal cause. We have to have a legal way that He can enter in and that we have a right to intercede. So let's turn to the first scripture, 2 Kings 13, verses 14 through 21. And this deals just with the man. Now, it's just so tasty. I'm going to try to just pace myself. I'm trying to be very respectful of everyone's time, but if you gotta go, I understand. I just gotta get it all out, and then y'all can even listen to it later if need be. That's how good His word is. I will talk to myself. I won't be offended. All right. 2 Kings chapter 13, verses 14 through 21. And so let's talk about what's going on here. The prophet Elisha has died. They have buried the prophet. And In the following year, it says in the coming in at the new year, that they was burying a dead man. They tossed the dead man into his graves, and the dead man touched the bones of Elisha and was resurrected. So now let's break that down a little bit. First of all, the servant that we are talking about is the prophet Elisha. And his name means this: Yah is my cry for help. I like looking up names because it gives some different meanings on why the Most High responds to people in the way and the manner in which you do, because it is something in a name. The location is Samaria. Samaria is the watch mountain. That's literally what Samaria means. It's the watch mountain. So Elisha is in that area, and he is the watchman for the house of Israel at that time, and he has died. Now let's talk about the event and the circumstances of death. It starts at verse 14. Now Elisha was fallen sick of his sickness whereof he died. Verse number 15 says this: and Elisha had said before this, take now your bow and your arrow, talking to the king Joash before he had died. He came to his where he was resting at his home. And he said, take a bow and arrow. That goes back to what Apostle was saying that he saw earlier. He saw an arrow. He saw an arrow. Take bow and arrows. And he took unto him bow and arrows. And he said unto the king of Israel, put thine hand upon the bow, and put your hand upon, and he put his hand upon it. And Elisha put his hand upon the king's hand. And he said, open the window eastward, and he opened it. And then Elisha said, shoot, and he shot. And he said, this being Elisha, the arrow of Elohim's deliverance, and the arrow of deliverance from Syria, for thou shalt smite the Syrians in Aphek until you have consumed them. Verse 18, and he said, take the arrows. So he took them, and he said unto the king of Israel, smite upon the ground. He smote 3 times, and he stopped. And the man of Yah was angry with him. He said, you should have smitten 5 or 6 times, and then you would have smitten Syria that many times until you had utterly consumed them. But now you should only smite them 3 times. And then verse 20 says this: and Elisha died, and they buried him. Okay? We have a prophet who has announced a prophetic word, and then he died. The prophetic word hasn't come to pass. And this is going to be the case law, that there will be no word from the Most High that shall be void of power. That means that it don't matter if the prophet go. I love you. But if that prophetic word that prophet of the Most High spoke into your life, over your life, has not come to pass, you still have a promise in your atmosphere that you should be having an expectation of giving birth to and seeing the manifestations of. Now this is what verse 21 says. And it came to pass, as they were burying a man, they spied a band of men, they cast the man into the sepulchre of Elisha, and when the man was let down and touched the bones of Elisha, he revived and stood up on his feet. That touched the bones, it made me think of Jeremiah. And his words, he says, his word was like fire shut up in my bones. So this had, at this point, because the prophet is dead, the man is dead, it ain't got nothing to do with them. It has everything to do that the Most High is going to perform the word that has come out of his mouth. This is what it says. The man touched his bones and he revived. Because there was a word that said that the Most High was going to cause a recovery that was in that atmosphere. I'm going to reiterate again. That means it ain't even so much about the person who then died. It ain't even about the person who may be the messenger of said word. It's just the fact that the Most High has spoke something over your life to you through a true prophet of the Most High, and he has to back up his words. He says, I will not change nor alter a word that has come out of my mouth. Indeed, that was from out of Psalms 89 and 34. But then in Isaiah 55, he says this. He says that I will send out my word, but my place in which I have sent it, and it will accomplish. It will perform itself. All right. So that's the prophetic word. Now, I like what it says over in Sirach. Listen to what he talks about Elisha. This is chapter 48, verses 12 through 14. Elisha was not moved with the presence of any prince. Neither could anyone bring him into subjection. No word could overcome him. And after his death, his body prophesied. This man of Yah was living his life in such a way. He had such a prayerful lifestyle before the Most High that his body was still prophesying after his death. That sounds just like Abel. He's like Abel's blood is still crying out because that man was so righteous. His body, his bones were still talking after he was in the grave. He said that this is what it says. He said that after his death, his body prophesied. He did wonders in his life, and at his death were his works marvelous. That's Sirach chapter 48, verses 12 through 14. No word from the Most High shall be without power to perform itself.
Come on here.
That's Luke 1:37. It's speaking itself. Now let's go to Ezekiel 37 because we still got we got these bones we got to deal with. But there's a prophetic word in the air. Now in Ezekiel 37, and we're going to spend more time on the last two in particular because I know that's where we really are. But I'm building a case, and this is for us to go back and study the case law. So again, right around chapter 33, it says that Ezekiel has been set as a watchman for the house of Israel. So we know that though they may not be at the watchtower, there is still a watchman. And they are in Babylon. They are in Babylonian captivity, which means they have been brought far off. And this is what has happened up until then. The kingdoms are split. Israel has sinned a great sin in that they have gone completely astray from the Most High. And the children of Israel have become ensnared because of idolatry, to the point they have completely provoked the Most High to righteous anger, and He allowed them to go into captivity. That He said, you're going to be here a long time. Go ahead, settle down, get married, make a life for yourself, because you're here. But they are crying out to be back home in Jerusalem. At some point during the captivity, He lifts up prophet Ezekiel into the realm of the spirit, and Ezekiel goes on angels' wings, chariots of fire, and the Most High brings him to the dry bones. It's a complete valley. And He says, you see these dry bones, Ezekiel, can they live? Oh, Most High, you know. You know whether or not this thing can be exhumed. They were very dry. They weren't just, they were withered, they were hard, were very dry. They had not entered into true worship before the Most High in years. And I can tell you this, just as an intercessor that prays, if you don't get into worship, warfare will take you out. You can't constantly war. You need worship in order to, the song was saying, regenerate ourselves. Worship causes an ignition on the inside of us that causes ourselves to literally wake up. He says, wake up my glory. Yes. And so this is what it says over in verse number 7. Because they had a question, can these bones live? And then the Most High told him, I want you to say some words. It was, He was using the prophet, but the prophet was being fed what to say. I want you to say what I told you to say. And so Ezekiel said, and so I prophesied as I was commanded. And as I prophesied, there was a sound. There was resurrection starting to happen. The bones began to come together. They began to stand up as a mighty army. But there was still no breath and there was no spirit in them. And so he said, prophesy again. And so then breath and life and spirit and sinew came upon, and they stood up a mighty army. Yeah. Because the Most High gave a word. Because no word from the Most High shall be without power. Not a one. Not one. I like how he said to Samuel, Samuel, I'm not going to let any of your words fall to the ground. And I can say that because Samuel showed himself as a true prophet, the same words was also spoken to prophet Ezekiel. He has shown and proven himself through the course of time to be a true prophet, because the Most High said, I'm not going to let not one of the words that I told you to speak fall to the ground void. That's the exact same thing with Elisha in the grave. He still had a word that he had prophesied, and the Most High said, not one word from me, not one word that I tell you to speak shall I permit to fall to the ground as though it was void. This is what it says in verse number 14. And I will put my spirit within you, and you shall live, and I will place you in your own land, and then you shall know that I am Elohim. I have spoken, and I will do it. We have to start. When he starts saying just go, you need to just go. If he say just speak, you need to just speak. Because no word that he gives to us will he permit to fall to the ground. Hallelujah. And even as we begin to speak to generations of all, you need to trust and believe the same way that we found Yeshua in our day and in our time, so will our generations, because we are prophesying to a time that is afar off. Hallelujah. The scripture says this, that the prophets, they long to see as to what time the Spirit of the Most High was talking to them about. They wanted to look into the things that we get to see and behold and walk in. But let me just assure you, they talked about it way back then by the Spirit of God. I like what he says in Jeremiah. After 70 years is complete. That means he's looking for the totality and the fullness of it all before he performs what he said he would perform. Yeah. He says, I will come and fulfill my good promise. I'm the one that spoke it, and can't I make it good? Now I'm going to go to a few scriptures that talks about the word, because I said we're going to do God talk tonight. Hebrews 4 and 12 says this. I got my notes, y'all. For the word of the Most High is living and is active. I looked at another translation. It says it's quick and it's powerful. I looked at another translation. It says it's alive and it's powerful. It's sharper than any two-edged sword, is able to cut and pierce even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit, of joints and marrow, and it is a discerner of the thoughts of men. Yes. That's his word that's active, that's moving through the earth even now. Jeremiah 20, this is leading to something, so you got to catch this. Jeremiah 20 said this, 20 and verse 9. He said, his word was in my heart, as a burning fire shut up in my bones. Jeremiah 1 and 9 says, I have put my words in your mouth. Isaiah 51 and 16, I have put my words in your mouth and covered you with the shadow of my hands, that I might plant the heavens and lay the foundations of the earth, and say unto Zion that you are my people. Why am I saying this? There's a word that is on the inside of us. Each and every one of us has a word. What I mean by that is, I was laying and I started meditating And anytime you talk, I was meditating about this, and as he started, I felt, talking to me about resurrection power, I felt, I was laying in my bed, and I felt my sheets had become completely hot. Not because I've just been laying there, but that this word, resurrection, was fire. It must be in my bones. That means I'm authorized to talk about this here. And I have to awaken what's been shut up, what ain't been talked about. I have to awaken it even if nobody else understands it now. I simply don't care. I just believe everything that the Most High then told me in this word. He didn't make me lay out, lean on, completely trust in it. So He's got to perform things for me according to this here. Now, I can say the same thing. My husband, he walks in healing power. So if you just talk to him about healing, his whole body ignites because he has a word of healing that's on the inside of him. And this is what the word says. You can't say to this person that I don't need you, and to this joint I don't need you, because it's something about the body working together. So let me say it like this. If I was to talk to Apostle Carlos, and I was to say, Apostle Carlos, I want to talk to you about deliverance, your whole inside would probably ignite, be set on fire, because you know you have deliverance on the inside of you. You know that part of your call is to walk in the supernatural. So whenever you talk about the supernatural, something ignites on the inside. This is what's happening. I grew up my spiritual father. If you talk about restoration, he would ignite. Literally like a heat signal around him. Because that word is on the inside of us. And we have to pay attention to the thing that causes us to begin to burn on the inside. Because that means that the Most High has written something in the records of our scroll. It's a fire that has been shut up in our bone that we have to begin to tap into and begin to release. It's the same thing with prayer. It ain't no kind of, I want to go and pray. I'm an intercessor, so the first book that my husband happened to buy when we found the Lord, it was a book on intercession. He was like, yeah, I saw this. He was at HEB, I remember the book. He's like, I saw this, I just thought about you. He don't know. He connected to a word that was in me. I started going, but prayer is part of my life. It's the foundation. And when you start talking about prayer, start going into prayer, all of you just set off. You just ablaze.
Hallelujah.
That's a word burning in you. And we have to find that word that's on the inside of us. So for instance, Pastor Pam, if I was to talk to you about dreams, because you are a dreamer, you can see, you probably start getting all giddy on the inside. You start getting excited. Your belly starts moving. That's your baby leaping.
Hallelujah.
This is in us. This is what Luke says. And they said to one another, did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us by the way, and while he opened to us the scriptures? Did our hearts not burn? We're supposed to be able to recognize Yeshua when he's in our midst and he's having a conversation. Our hearts should begin to burn for him. That's what happened when I started looking into resurrection. I was laying in my bed and suddenly I became aware, because I'm typically very cold natured, so I got sheets pulled up, I got layers, okay? And so I had to start throwing covers off. I'm like, Daddy. And I touched it. How sometimes you got to test. I'm like, what is this? It's shut up. But we have to start releasing it.
Hallelujah.
All right. Now that's the word of power that's in our bones. Let's go to the next set. My next case law. This deals with, this was good too. I have often, let's turn, this one is recorded in 3-4 different gospels. 3 of them. Luke, Matthew, and Mark records this one. This is Jairus' daughter. So let's go to Luke 8:49. Let's go to Luke chapter 8, verses 49. But it's also recorded in Matthew 9, It's also recorded in Mark 5 and 35. And remember, last time we talked about do I need to fast, and all I can tell you is, he made things so clear. Hold your finger there in Luke and just flip over to Matthew chapter 9, verses 10 through 18. I just want to point something out because he likes to make things clear. Right at verse 10. Because I asked him, I said, Father, surely fasting had to go on, and then, he had me reason with the word, but then he just came back and made it so plain. He said, and it came to pass, as Yeshua sat at meat in the house, behold, many publicans and sinners came and sat down with him, and his disciples and the Pharisees seeing it. Oh, your master eat with everybody, with publicans, with sinners, and it goes on. And then it says that in verse 14, they start talking to him about fasting. He says, and it came to the disciples of John saying, why do we and the Pharisees fast oft, but you and your disciples say, y'all fast not. And Yeshua gives an explanation. Now skip down to 18. While he was still yet speaking these things, now they sit down to a meal. While he was still yet speaking these things unto him, behold, there came a certain ruler and worshipped him, saying, my daughter is even now dead. Yeah. He taught this job. So remember I said that resurrection power, apparently you don't have to fast. He just made it real clear. Yeshua was sitting at the table eating his lunch. Eating his dinner right there. He was eating. All right. Now, I couldn't act. It was just so tasty. He did that 2 or 3 times to the point it just made me laugh. I was like, fuck, you just get rid of every religious snake that could possibly be.
Come on now.
But I call this here situation, it's the age of accountability and responsibility. So this is Yeshua himself, the Son of the Most High. And he is in the area where the demonic came out of the tombs. Now, this is the second time he has come to this area, but the first time is important. The first time he came, his feet hit the coast, the man with the demons came out, worshipped him, he cast them out, taught the entire set of business. 2,000 swine went into the ravine. They said, the rulers of the people from the city came out, you need to get on from here. I need you to depart. But this is time number 2, and that demoniac who wanted to go with Yeshua, he said, oh no, I need you to stay here. You need to go and tell your people what the Most High has done for you. Now, the second time he come across the coast, they begging him. Oh no, to the point, John, he is he's one of the rulers of the synagogue. Now he coming to worship at his feet, Lord. Some things that flipped. Before he didn't run him off the first time, but now his daughter, the word, and you have to go through all of the different references. The word says it's his only daughter. Won't your children make you do some things you do? Okay. You start throwing things. When I didn't think I believe, oh, that's my bad. Oh, no. Lord, help my unbelief. I believe. Help my unbelief. So this is what it says. We're going to I'm going to use Luke 8 and 49. I'm going to just jump over to there. We're going to start there. Let's skip down. Yeah, I'm going to start at verse 50. No, it's just too good. I got to mock the adversary. We're gonna go back to 8 and 49. While he still yet speaking about Yeshua, there cometh one of the rulers from the synagogue's house, saying unto him, thy daughter is dead, trouble not the master. But when Yeshua heard, he answered him, fear not, believe only, and she shall be made whole. And when he came into the house, he suffered no man to go in except Peter, James, and John, the father and the mother of the maid. He wanted them to see. You are ruler of the synagogue. Today you don't see. Yeah. And all wept. They bewailed her, and he said, weep not, she's not dead, but asleep. She's just sleeping. And they laughed him to scorn. No, they just knew she was dead. That's why law of wisdom 3:1 says that the unwise assume that they are dead, but they are but asleep in the hands, the righteous are in the hands of the Most High. And so Yeshua put them all out, took her by the hand, and called her, saying, Nay, arise. And her spirit came again, and she arose straightway. That's immediately. She rose immediately. Because this was the event. My daughter was dying. Two people come from the house. Don't call them the phone. Your daughter dead. You in the middle of an event. What you gonna do? Yeshua say, don't you fear, don't you weep, just believe. That's what he said, and that's what we have to start doing. I don't care what okay, we'll get to that one, Daddy. I won't even jump ahead. And her parents were astonished, but he charged them that they should tell no man what was done. I'm looking for the age of this child. Hold on one second, because one scripture specifically gives her age, and it's important because I wondered about that. I had wondered, I'm like, man, why? He don't waste words. So we always have to ask, why did you put that in there? Give me 1 second. Their eyes was open and yeah. Maybe it's in Mark. As I'm saying, you got each scripture gives a little bit different take on it. And you got to put them all together to see everything that went on. All right, there it is. Let's go to Mark chapter 5, verse 42 real quick. And straightway the damsel arose, and she, Mark 5, verse 42. I told y'all I love this word, so if I talk too fast, y'all just you tell me no. And straightway the damsel arose, and she walked. Oh, see, let's tell a little bit more. She didn't just, she was 12. For she was the age of 12. 12 is the age that you come into accountability and responsibility. If you remember Yeshua, the scripture specifically said he was 12 years old in the temple, and he was asking questions and answering. He was going back and forth. The mother came, why did you do this to us, son? We had an age to the point where what my daddy and them may have rejected, I'm about to receive. Resurrection power is here. Because remember, the first time Yeshua came into the coast, Jairus and them, the city came out and ran him off. You ain't good for business. You got to get up out of here. Oh, but the daughter said, you excellent. You excellent. And so I need to choose my own way. I need to choose how I'm going to worship. I'm 12 years old and I don't have to sit up here and just, you going to tell me I'm going to worship the Most High? I'm choosing. Yes. She chose to hear. And that's important. This is what it says about Manasseh. Because every child, they choose, and we thinking our children choosing when they're in their 20s. No, they chose when they was a young child, which is why many times you hear about those. I gave my heart to the Most High a long time ago. And they tell you, I remember being by my bedside and I would pray. These are children. Because the Most High is visiting those who got a heart to want to know Him. Manasseh was 12, and he chose not. He said he did evil in the sight of the Most High. I'm just saying that age of accountability in the realm of the spirit is nothing to joke with, which is why we have those years to teach and to train our child in the way that they should go. So that's the age of responsibility. Let's flip over now to Acts 9 and 36. Again, we just making the case on you because we're going to get to the meat of the crux of the problem in just one moment. Acts 9, verse 36. And this is the case law for the works. Ephesians 2 and 10 says that we have been created in Christ Yeshua anew with good works. Yeshua himself said, if you don't want to believe me for the works' sake. That's what he said. That's what he said. That means we have good works, and for those, and I love this, when they labor among us. So for instance, Heaven forbid. Yeah, it's not my time. Anything go wrong with me. Y'all come get me up. Y'all know my works. Y'all better call them out. You talk to you talk to the word. I told y'all we gonna do God talk tonight. We gonna do, and so you already gonna know ahead of time my beliefs. I believe in resurrection power. Just say my name, tell them to get me up. Okay, Erica, now that's enough. Get up.
Get up.
Yeah. In the name of Yeshua, get up. Because that's God talk.
Yeah.
So the God in you gonna have to talk to the God in me.
Hallelujah.
And then you put the Most High in remembrance of my words. Now, Daddy, okay, all right. Now, this is what happened in Apostle Peter. This was again, he was a man of prayer. He had a lifestyle. These were not events. As a result of my lifestyle, I never had an event to emerge in my life. That's why in Sirach it says this, that there was no word that could overcome the prophet.
Yes.
Because I don't have an event in my life that my lifestyle can't even level up and go to another level in order to match that event. I got too much word. I got promises over me. All right. Now they in Joppa. Now these two also had commonalities. Joppa is a port city. The same way that the area of the Gadarenes, that was a coastal city, which means they had a port. The ship came up and they was like, get back in your ship and go. News travel in and out from the port cities. News get traveled abroad when you live in a port city. Can I say that Houston is a port city? Okay. So you need to expect it. We got so many things working in our favor. It also means beautiful. I told y'all last time, he know how to take some ashes and give you beauty for it. But this is about Dorcas. Her name is also known as Tabitha. And so let's pull out some spiritual conditions about Tabitha. She's a disciple. That's what the word says. Verse 36 says, now there was at Joppa a certain disciple. That means the disciple is one who is learning, increasing in knowledge of the Most High. And this woman was full of good works and alms deeds, which she did. So they have 3 points on her case. She's a disciple. That means she's found in him. She has good works, and she also has alms. And it says that there came an event. In those days, she became ill and died. Now I'm going to flash forward. This is the scene in her room. There is weeping, there is crying, and you know who's doing it? It's some widows. So now you're going to pull all of that together, really? You got widows in the room weeping over Dorcas. And he already said, you need to go ahead and plead the case and the cause of the widow. But okay. And they were showing tunics and other garments that Dorcas made while she was with them. Now I want to skip down to when the court was opened. Because this is what we don't do. Not that I'm hearing it. We just don't do this part. Hearing that Peter was there in the area, the disciples sent for him. I'm not talking about Peter come and pray. No, Peter, I expect you to come. Urge him to come. And upon arrival, Peter put them all out. Because at this point, they left, she was sick. He came back, she and died. But Peter is a man of prayer. He has a lifestyle of crying out to the Most High. And his words, his voice print is known in heaven. The word says that he knelt down and prayed. And turning to the body, he said 2 words, Tabitha, arise. That tells me that there was power in Peter. And there was also, apparently, Dorcas, Tabitha, had also had some word, God talk on the inside of her. And they stood up there and had a communication and a conversation. And 2 words got her up. The opened her eyes. We had it immediately come out of the event because of the lifestyle of the apostle. And it was also the lifestyle of Dorcas. Because remember, her works was still crying out for her. Widows were saying that you should do this. Widows was reminding Peter of the alms, that means the charity, the love offerings that she was doing on their behalf. They were bringing the garments that she was clothing the poor with. This is what she did with her life. So apostle, that you know that you got a legal right to do what we are about to ask you to do. This is important because even when there was a centurion and his servant was to the point of death, they started talking, no, he's worthy for you to do this, Most High. He's worthy, Yeshua, because he has built us a synagogue. He's worthy. It was his works. Okay. All right. But now let's talk about where we at. I'm going to give you two scenes, which is why I have my little grandbaby's PJ Masks right here. I ain't promoting PJ Masks. I'm using him as an example on today. Apostle Leonard, there was something you said last week. You said we are in an emergency. It's so true. I went back to a word that the Most High told me November 3rd, 2017. The word was, it's a medical emergency. It's more urgent than what we know. So let me give you, I'm going to give you two scenes. Scene one. Two men. No, we started off. A child sits several stories up, falls down, lands in an unusual position. There are cries from the crowd that are gathered. Nowadays, they would ask, is there a doctor in the room? Yeah. One man, two men, all of them with their bona fide degrees, they're real smart, intelligence. I'm a doctor. They would come down and they would commence to use all of their training on the child. Also in this crowd, there are believers, pastors, teachers, evangelists, prophets, apostles. They saw what happened and didn't respond. One man, a trained doctor, he's a specialist in his field. He a practicing atheist. Luciferian mindset. His degree told him, I can handle this. But the man and the woman of the Most High walking with the Ruach HaKodesh. The man of God in this instance is anointed. He has a kingdom of the Most High mindset. The Spirit of God moves through him, operating with power when he preaches. Both are available, but only one responds. This is a 911. Too often it is the doctor who responds. Though he is a specialist in his field, his downfall is his pride. A practicing atheist who firmly does not believe in our Yah, operating from a Luciferian mindset of how the children of darkness behave more shrewdly than the children of light. He falls back on his training while the other, who represents the ecclesia, the body of Yeshua, he steps aside. Though he is really the one that is more skilled, more trained, more anointed, because the King of Glory sits on him. But there is fear. You got the fear of a lawsuit. You got The fear, if it don't work, what about my reputation? But I guess you need to just make yourself of no reputation. The fear, they said, don't touch, you're supposed to stabilize. Stabilize his head, don't touch it, but we're going to talk about that tonight. The fear of inadequacy, the fear of failure. What if I do this, everybody looking, it don't work? The doctor don't need none of that. Do you know how many patients they get lost? But they don't never draw back. They run into the fray. Because they talk about I was made for this. And it's time for us to run into the fray.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
The fear of making it worse. But Yeshua said this, I'm not giving you a spirit of fear. I gave you one, a power, love, and a sound and a well-balanced mind. He says, just listen to my voice. If you listen to my spirit, you're going to see some things happen in the earth realm in this hour.
Yes.
And it's the world that instructs the fear. It's telling you, do not touch, stabilize his head, wait for the trained professionals. While we waiting, they over here dying. That's why Red Crossing came in where I want me to go down. So this is my case law on. Hope I can say his name right. Eutychus. This is in Acts 12. Because this is the very thing that happened. And I'm not talking about, these things are happening now in the earth. People are falling to their death. I'm not talking about those that's taking a flying leap. I'm talking about things are happening that's causing severe injuries, and because we are listening to the world, we're not exercising the kingdom.
Yes.
So this is the backdrop. You can put this, it's Acts 20. I'll get you the scriptures verses in a moment because I'm not going to go in. I'm going to tell you about what happened, but it's Acts 20. You can go and read it in scripture. But it says that Paul this is his last night in port, another port city. Last night in port is the place where news gonna travel. He's breaking bread also. They literally about to sit at the table to eat. So again, there's no fasting going on for what's about to happen. And it says that Paul was long preaching. He was connecting thought after thought after thought. They would ask him, he was long preaching. That's what he said in the word. And then I'm going to tell you how long in just a minute. He was long preaching. He said it was about midnight. But Eutychus was a disciple. He was eager to hear Paul. He knew this was Paul's last time in the port, this last night in the port. I got to be there, to the point that the only place that was available to sit in the house was on a window seat for real. They had no back to the window seat. He was sitting on the ledge. And Paul was so long talking. And I don't want to say talking because the word, when you look all that preaching up, it says he was connecting thought to thought. Which means that maybe they were asking questions and then he was reasoning further and he was explaining by the Spirit of them. He was connecting thought to thought. There ain't no such thing on preaching. He fell asleep. And he fell 3 stories down to his death. Paul didn't wait. He didn't even ask, is there a doctor in the room? He told everybody, he ran down. You got to see it, so that's why I brought little PJ with me. He ran down. He fell on the child. And he embraced him. He did everything that the doctors told you don't do. You're supposed to stabilize it. No, the Ruach said I need to embrace it.
Hallelujah.
I need to cover it. And then he says this, he go back up. That was midnight when he fell. He go back up and continue preaching. They ate a meal. And then it wasn't until the break of day. 6 more hours he talked. Okay, y'all ain't ready for that. When he said I spent all night in prayer, he wasn't playing. Anyway. But it says that he sat up here and they saw Eutychus alive. Because he said, stop it before y'all even get a cattle on, before y'all even get to crying out like there's an event here. The resurrection power is available. He said his life is in him. You ain't got to cry. His life is in him. The Most High said I have to deal with this orphan spirit.
Whoa.
Makes you think I done left you. So now let's go to our last one. We probably gonna be on this one for a minute. Because I don't write, this is a brand new Bible, it's got super big words on it. So I had to start writing in this one just yet because I don't know how I'm gonna mark it up just yet. But I had a new Bible delivered, so to the point I had to print it out. But now let me set the scene. Because this is another medical emergency. This is a 911 kind of situation. Because we got to see what's going on with our faith.
What you say? What you say?
So, Lazarus, and I'm going to go in more detail, but let me set the stage. Because we medical, I got my degrees and my technology, and the machine is saying do this, and the blood work anyway. Okay, so we medical, and I'm not, please don't think I'm mocking those degrees, but let me show you what's going on now within the body of Christ. Well, and I can't talk about the word, I'm going to talk about the body, because I'm going to talk about the body. We go to the doctor, it's an emergency. It may very well be an emergency, and the Most High has given a level of knowledge, but they are not the creator. And I wish I had somebody that could hold the mic, so I'll do it this way. We let a doctor sit up here, do chest compressions. Oh! They taking scalpels, chest compressions, 40 minutes. They tie their arms out. They doing it. They have the proper. They got the proper working right there. Ribs broken, because you done all them chest compressions. But you know what? You let them do it. We let them do it because you're the medical profession, and they can't get no little pulse. Might even be a flat line on the machine. And they look at the clock. Time of death. Now the body of Christ, I ain't talking about no unbelief. I ain't talking about no atheists. I'm talking about us. Let whoever that is, who's been masked up, gowned up, and done chest compressions on our loved one, let them call it and let it be the final word, like he was the creator or she was the creator of everything that was on the table. We are in a 911 emergency. Because we don't even call the body. We call the body when they still sick. When they still alive, because that's where our faith is, and the Most High is just identify where you are and be real about it so that I can move you to another place. So after they call it, all the Most High is asking for, after they call it and they cover up the body and everything, all the Most High is asking for is that somebody that just believes my word. To go over and speak life and speak to the spirit that is in my hand, that you know that this is a righteous man. Okay. John 11, because we're going to be here for a minute. Here's the event. Lazarus at some point became sick. Verse number 1. And so his two sisters that are alive sent to Yeshua, who is 2 miles away. The scripture says 15 furlongs, approximately 2 miles. To 2 miles away. She sins. And this is what they say. This is at verse number 3. Elohim, behold, he whom you love is sick. When Yeshua heard it, he said, this sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of the Most High, that the Son of Yah might be glorified thereby. Then he goes on to explain in verse number 5. Now Yeshua loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. When he had heard, therefore, that Lazarus was sick, he abode 2 days long. See, you gotta be ready when you do some hard to understand things. Because on the surface, I can't even understand that. He acknowledges, these are people that I love. You 2 miles away, you a good 30 minutes, I will walk away. You stay 2 days longer. But note what his word says. This sickness is not unto death. So he already knew what was coming up. That's why he said, this sickness is not unto death. When you skip down to verse number 11, 2 days later, he talks to his disciple, okay, now it's time for us to go to Bethany to see about our friend Lazarus. He's asleep. And now I understand why the disciples didn't understand originally. Because they just talked about he was sick. That's what, Elohim, Lord? He don't get up. No, I know to wake him, but please don't get up surely because he was just sick. That was the last word. And then Yeshua says this, I go that I may wake him out of his sleep. They didn't understand that he was talking about Lazarus had died, so he had to get real blunt. Look, Lazarus is dead. He's not even in the town yet, y'all. So he knew that by the Spirit.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying, he too hard to understand things. Verse 15 says, Yeshua said this, and I am glad for your sakes that I was not there. Wait a minute. The one you love just died. They asked you to come. You stayed 2 days long. That's what he did. And then he turns to the disciples and says, I am glad. See, you and I have to be prepared when Yeshua does, the Most High does some hard to understand things. We still have to believe no matter what.
Yeah.
To the intent that you might believe. Nevertheless, let us go into him. Because the disciples had faith for healing, but they had seen resurrection power. Not like this. Now, let's talk about because again, he's 2 miles away, so it don't even take him long to get there. That's what I'm saying. That's hard to understand. You 2 miles away. Okay, you wait 2 days long, you 2 miles away. See, that's the part that's hard to understand. Verse 19 says, and there are many Jews. Now, that's going to be important, so we're going to come back to it. So just kind of keep that in your write down, okay? Skip down to verse number 22. Oh, no, I can't pass up Martha. Let me start with Martha. 21. And Martha said unto Yeshua, Lord, if thou had been here, my brother had not died. Now, check out what she says next. But I know that even now, whatsoever you will ask of Yah will give it to you. But see, that's just words. Because truth be told, if I really believed that, I would be asking, I need you to get him up.
Yeah.
She didn't really believe it. I know she didn't believe it because this is what Yeshua said to her. That brother shall rise again. And Martha said unto him, I know that he shall shall rise again in the resurrection of the last day. I know, because now, and this is important because that means that she's a Pharisee believer type, which means the Pharisees believe in resurrection power. You need to keep that little pin on the side because that's going to become important after the miracle. And Yeshua said unto him, now he just going to be blunt. I am the resurrection. She still didn't ask. Okay. He gonna point blank tell you I am the resurrection and the life. Didn't ask. Hallelujah. I know that he shall rise again. He says, he that believes in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. Okay. He said, he put it so plainly, so bluntly. He said, do you believe this, Martha? She said unto him, yes, Lord. I believe that. Now, you know, people tell you what they really believe with the words that come out of their mouth. Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ. That ain't what he said. He says, I am the resurrection and I am the life. Do you believe this? That's what he asked. Her response was, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of Yah, which should come into the world. She still didn't ask for her brother to be raised. So Yeshua, skip down to verse 33. He groans in his spirit. Verse 35, he weeps. Verse 38, he groans again within himself. Right around 36, these are the Jews that have been around Martha and Mary. Could not this man, which opened the eyes of the blind, have caused that even this man should not have died? They still don't believe. Take away the stone. And Martha said, Lord, he's sinking. By now it's been 4 days. She still don't believe. This is what he says right at verse number 41. Father, I thank you that you always hear me. And I know that you hear me always when I pray. He calls Lazarus forth. God talked to the God that was on the inside of Lazarus. I told you to make a note of those Jews that was around in the vicinity. And I need you to go down to verse number 47. Because these are the same Jews that say that they believe in the resurrection. The Pharisees, you see, they believe, Paul says, I am on trial because of my faith. I believe in the resurrection. I am a Pharisee that's what he said. Verse number 46 says this, but some of them went their ways to the Pharisees and told them what things Yeshua had just done. Then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council and said, what do we do? For this man doeth many miracles. These are the Pharisees. This is what I heard. It is possible to teach something and then not recognize it or even want it when it appears. The Pharisees believe in resurrection. A resurrecting Yeshua is here, performed it in the midst of some of them. They go and tell it to the other, and the rulers are trying to shut it down. Because it's possible to teach something and then you yourself don't even believe it or recognize it or want to receive it when it is here.
Yes. True.
We have to be spiritually discerning. And I got some points because I've been looking into this off and on based on what I'm understanding now. I need to just make this a part of my regular study. I go back to November 12th, 2017. These are not my words, but things have been occurring during that time that made me go and write up what I was hearing the Most High say. And at the time, there was a visiting pastor who was preaching, and I'm going to give you his name, and then I'm going to give you the points that he pointed out, because those points are, and I can't take credit for any of that, because that man of God sold his life to receive words.
Yeah.
So I have to give credit where credit is due, and not even portray like these are my revelations right here. I gave you the revelations that the Spirit of God gave me.
Right.
But these are not my words. So this is from Dr. Landry. November 12, 2017. This is what he said. And I, to the point it was so impactful, I put it with this word because the Most High was responding to me because of some things that had been occurring at that time that I did not understand as it pertained to resurrection and what my faith was, because I knew I believed, but then I had several people who did not come out of what I was believing them to come out of. Let me say it that way. And there was an incident that had occurred around that time. It was, like I said, 1 or 2 events, not direct, but I didn't understand. And I began to ask the Most High questions. And all I can say is he sent the man of God to sit up there and decree this over the house. November 12, 2017, the title of his message was, I Demand a Rematch. I'm just giving you the points. Because that's what we're going to have to do in this hour. We're going to have to demand a rematch. Then after they can call it, I demand a rematch. Yeah. Open back up the case.
Yes.
They ain't got to do it. Give me the Bible.
Right.
First thing he said, do not fear and do not be dismayed. He came out of a different context. I'm pulling the points that he said because the Most High was speaking.
Right.
He said, when you lost something and you didn't know why, when we are the sons and the daughters of the Most High, and we have a history and a track record in our life of following him, we should expect.
There's an expectation.
The promise of the Most High that he will never leave us, he will never forsake us, is more than just showing up.
Yeah.
He said further, be not lulled to any complacency, any apathy. Don't be lazy in our approach. Laziness to the maintenance of this anointing that's being poured out upon your life. You can't be lazy.
Yeah.
The promises of the Most High have requirements. He says, if you are willing and obedient, you will eat the good of the land. Whosoever calls upon the name of Elohim shall be saved. But first, it requires that we call.
Yes.
Because the Most High has augmented us and caused us to rise to another level, and there is now a new demand upon our performance. We are no longer, I put what I was doing at that time, we are no longer the same intercessors that we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. You find your age range. We no longer the same. And God has raised the stakes and given to us the same anointing, the same ability, the same opportunity that he gave unto Elijah, that he gave unto Elisha, that he gave unto Moshe, that he gave unto the apostles, that he gave to Yeshua. My words, Romans 8 and 11 says that the same Spirit of Christ dwells on the inside of us.
That's it right. That's right.
But you're right, Apostle, that is it. We say it, but do we really believe that?
Hallelujah.
Because it's more than just words right now.
Hallelujah.
If it's not your lifestyle, it's going to be hard to go and match an event.
Come on. That's right.
He further said, it costs to have an anointing of this magnitude. Favor is not cheap. There is a requirement that must be met and a holding to a certain standard and a deliverance of performance if you want the Most High to continue doing what he has always done. I'm going to say it again. It costs to have an anointing of this magnitude.
Hallelujah.
It costs to have an anointing exhume the body. It costs. Things that look easy with faith baby.
Hallelujah. It's working.
It's working.
It's working.
I'm going to tell you, these are the words of Pastor Sarah Morgan, because again, they came as I was writing and taking notes during that particular service. God says full price or no deal. Then we've been trying to skate by.
Amen.
Full price or no deal. Not my word, that's a prophet. Okay. Full price or no deal. A private worship is required. This is back to Dr. Landry's words. Not only shouting when I come into the tabernacle, but in every situation, I must know how to give God praise. Can you praise Him through anything? Can you believe Him through anything? If it don't turn out with your prayers the way that you thought, or you still haven't believed, Father, I don't have any rock of offense within me. If you tell me to go today and get Him up, guess what? We'll do it today.
Hallelujah.
I love this part because he said, it takes a little bit of insanity to have real faith.
Yes, it does.
People will thank you praise. Bring the body to my house, please. No, I'll pay. If it don't go the way I thought it was gonna go, and the Most High tell me that this is the final, you know what? I'll pay to bring them to the funeral home. Bring the body by my house first, please. Just drop them from the hospital right on over here. I don't need you to work on them. I don't need you to do nothing. I don't know what you do behind those closed doors. I'm just telling you, when we went to go get my father-in-law and I'm telling y'all the truth, I saw where blood was beginning to flow, but I also know that they had been working on him. And I don't know what they working on him mean. So it takes a little bit of insanity to have real faith. In order to see what ain't there. Then crazy for real to convince folks to see what is not there and believe that you see it.
Hallelujah.
So the next point he made was, you're going to have to sit up there and check who you with. Because not everybody believes the way you believe, and it's all right. But it's the reason why he only took Peter, Paul, and James, and he didn't take Thomas in there, because Thomas was already talking about, well, we're going to go there to die too. I can't bring you in here, Thomas.
Thomas said what?
We're going to go there to die too. That's what he said at the beginning. He said, Lord. I'm telling the truth. He said, Lord, they was just trying to kill you in there. And we going back to Judea?
We sure did.
And he told everybody else, we going to die too. Thomas, you ain't coming in here. Peter, James, John, come on, because I can see the faith in you. He says you can no longer remain silent. You can't be blocked off. You can't cut off. Course of heaven, the flow of the supernatural, the miracle, the signs, the wonders. You have to open up your mouth and let God know that you are ready. You ready for the next move? You ready for the revival? You ready for the signs? You ready for the wonders? You ready for the miracles? You ready for His glory?
Yes.
Sometimes the hindrance is not because you changed, but someone close to you changed.
Ooh.
It can put you at a disadvantage. Finally, he said, we must have conversations with the Most High and not proceed presumptuously in prayer.
Yes.
Can you wait long enough to hear His voice? I mean, you know, after the doctor with the degrees and he is specialist and all of this here, and he looked at the watch and he called it. Can you wait? Can you wait? See, they used to call for us. They used to call for us. Now, I don't really have anything else other than that than to give you a couple of keys. I'm going to reiterate You have to have, you and I, we have to have a lifestyle of prayerfulness. These are no longer events.
No.
I live my life in constant communication with the Most High. The word says, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of his mouth. And we need the proceeding word of the Most High in our life again. Point number 2. We have to know the word that's shut up in our bones. So our spiritual sensitivity to be spiritually discerning
Yeah.
of what's in us. See, I can see what's in Apostle.
Yeah.
She didn't let the word manifest. I can see what was in and is in my spiritual father. He let the word manifest. If you squeeze and worship come out. You got to know that. See, I can see what's in Apostle Leonard. He has a heart for the oppressed. That's why he can't just go by. It does bring him to tears. But we each have to find out what's burning on the inside of us. That word that's been shut up in our bones. And we have to start igniting it. And the way we ignite it is with this word that is so sharp, it's so active, it's so powerful, it's so quick, it's alive.
Delicious and empowering.
Now, Father, we have done
Yeah.
all that you have said to do. And I'm just asking you to breathe. I need you to breathe upon this word in such a way that is you. Father, I don't need any glory for myself. I want the Son of the Most High to be glorified in me, that he will bring glory to you.
Yes.
And I petition you to exhume the body of evidence of resurrection power that is made available to the ecclesia of Christ Yeshua. Ruach HaKodesh willing us to do according to Father's good pleasure. And I seal this word, this teaching, and I seal these, your servants, your sons and your daughters, by the blood of Yeshua and by your Spirit. And I pray, Father, that you have been pleased. These are not just words for me, but these are my life. I trust you. And Father, I just thank you and I honor you and I give you glory. And it's in the name of Yeshua that I have spoken these things, prayed these things, and even declared these things.
Hallelujah.
And we say, so be it.
So be it. Woo! And it is so. Wow. Yeah. That word is so empowering, and this is what the Most High is saying. And some of the key things you said, we have to let the Most High know that we are ready.
Yes.
We are ready for his resurrection power. And when we cry out, he will give it to us. And even as Pastor Landry said, we must demand a rematch.
Yeah, yeah.
These are key elements in her message that we can take and go up higher. We can level up to be the supernatural person that he has designed us to be.
Yes.
But it is a full price.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other than that is no deal. So you'll be ever trying, but you haven't given up everything. So you never be able to really reach that portion that the Most High has called you to because you kept some for yourself. Full price or no deal. And when you began, and I was talking just a lot of things that we were talking about today and just hearing it as confirmation tonight. As we started the ministry, we did everything contrary to what it looked like as church. And so what she said was real faith. People will think you are insane. So we just, Father, we thank you for this message. We thank you for just to chew on it, meditate, and then as it nurtures us as we walk it out.
Yes. Yeah.
This is not a sit-down message. This is an activation and a message for action. So, Father, we thank you for the message that was released in this house. We thank you for how you downloaded so much in her. And thank you she was able to tie it all together because it came from you. So we thank you for who she is. And so we cover her in the blood. There won't be no backlash, transfer, communicate, ritualizing, or transforming. And Father, we thank you for the hedge of protection that's around her and her family. As you continue to download, and the blood of Yahushua is in her, on her path. And Most High, you are her rear guard. And we thank you for such a word as this, that it will carry on and be released in other places. Open up those doors, Father, that she can go in and just release and activate and unlock your people. And we thank you for that. In the name of Yahushua. So be it, and it is so. Woo. Thank you, Father. That's all we got to say. Can't say no more.